My name was Amir. I was an Imam, respected in my community, a voice of authority among the faithful in Kabul. But inside, there lay a different truth, a deep, gnawing void. I memorized the Quran, led prayers, and taught others to submit wholly to a doctrine that filled my life with rules but left my soul searching for something more. The weight of tradition felt heavier with each passing day. I wore my faith like armor, yet I felt exposed, vulnerable, and lost. Then, one fateful night, everything changed. I slipped into a restless sleep, only to awaken in a vast desert, an otherworldly realm that defied logic. There, standing before me, was Jesus. He called my name, piercing through the darkness that surrounded me. In that moment, I understood. The war one had been fighting was not merely a religious one, but a cosmic battle for truth and freedom that transcended my understanding. Jesus unveiled the veils that blinded me, revealing the hidden agendas lurking behind faith, manipulation, and fear. When I returned, the world felt different. My revelation was met with hostility. Family turned away, friends whispered of heresy. Every connection I had frayed at the edges, leaving me alone in my quest for truth. I was thrust into a chasm of doubt and despair, but somewhere deep inside, a flicker of courage ignited. I realized I could no longer remain silent. This truth, this madness, needed to be spoken. My journey became one of navigating shadows and seeking the light. I began to gather fragments of faith, listening intently to those who, like me, felt the pulse of a greater love, a more profound purpose. With each step I could feel the chains of my past loosening, yet the fear of losing everything I cherished clawed at me. Now I stand before you, not as an imam lost to my faith, but as a seeker of the ultimate truth, a calling that demands to be shared. I was torn by the weight of guilt for straying from the teachings I had once upheld with fervor. I wrestled with the fear that by embracing this new truth, I was not just abandoning my faith, but potentially damning my soul. It was a painful struggle, one marked by sleepless nights, spent wrestling with thoughts of betrayal toward my family and community. Despite the fear and guilt, the call to awaken and share my experience grew stronger. I could feel an urgency bubbling beneath the surface, driving me to connect with those still lost in the shadows of deception. I sought solace in what few friends I had left, those who also felt a tug toward awakening but were fearful of the consequences. In our gatherings, we shared stories of our struggles, thoughts on the spiritual war being waged, and the revelations that had come to light. It was through these conversations that I realized that we were bound not just by our experiences, but by a shared mission to shine a light on the truth before it was too late. I began to understand that this journey was not solely mine. It was part of a greater calling in the face of overwhelming adversity. Each day I felt the tug of those revelations urging me to speak out, to confront the fears that had once paralyzed me. The urgency pulsated in my veins, driving me to share the message of hope and liberation that Jesus had given me, despite the risks involved. I wanted to warn others about the hidden agendas that clouded our understanding, about the manipulation and lies spread by those in power. I knew what lay ahead would not be easy, but I felt empowered by the love and truth that had transformed me. I was ready to step into the unknown, ready to rise above fear, and embrace the awakening that had been set in motion within me. After my awakening, I embarked on a clandestine quest for truth that felt exhilarating and terrifying all at once. The revelations I had received from my encounter with Jesus lingered in my mind like a bright beacon, guiding me yet also stirring a deep fear within me. I found solace in the shadows, seeking out videos that explored Christianity in a way I hadn't dared to before. Each one felt like a lifeline tossed to me in raging waters, offering perspectives that challenged the very essence of the beliefs I had clung to all my life. As I absorbed these teachings, I uncovered layers of understanding that shifted my perception, igniting a hunger to learn more about the love and truth embodied by Jesus. My heart raced with a mix of excitement and dread as I connected with a small group of individuals who had also experienced their own awakenings. They met in secret, sharing stories that mirrored my own struggles and fears. In their presence, I felt an immediate kinship, an understanding that transcended words. We spoke of the spiritual war raging not only within our hearts but in the world around us. Together we recognized the hidden agendas at play, the ways in which the elite manipulated our understanding of spirituality, leading to widespread deception and division in society. Each conversation became a powerful reminder that I was not alone in my quest. Others were seeking the same truth, yearning to escape the oppressive narratives that had governed our lives. Among the discussions, we shared insights about how these deceptions had infiltrated our cultures and religions, perpetuating the cycles of fear and domination. I saw clearly how much of the suffering in the world was tied to the refusal to question and embrace the transformative power of true awakening. With every story shared, my sense of peace began to grow, softly peeling back the layers of fear that had held me captive. Yet, with this growing peace came an urgent realization of the risks we faced in our quest for truth. The possibility of losing everything I held dear hovered over me like a storm cloud, threatening to shatter the fragile sense of safety I had begun to cultivate. I remember walking through the narrow streets of Kabul, my heart racing at the thought of being discovered. The community I had served as an imam began to feel like a prison, filled with whispers and eyes that could detect even the slightest deviation from expected norms. While I sought to awaken to the truth, the fear of rejection from my family and friends gnawed at me. I kept reminding myself that the spiritual war one was witnessing was not just my personal struggle, but a battle that demanded collective courage. I felt the call to take action, to engage my community in conversations that could potentially open doors to understanding and healing. As I embraced this newfound sense of purpose, I felt a powerful urge to share the love and truth I had encountered through Jesus. I envisioned speaking openly about the hidden agendas and the deception that had dominated our belief systems for so long. While the fear of reprisal loomed large, the thought of empowering others with the revelation I had received filled me with hope. I recognized the stakes were high, yet the potential for transformation, the opportunity to awaken the hearts and minds of those still ensnared in fear, was worth every moment of tension. This journey was not merely about my own awakening. It was about embarking on a mission that could inspire countless others to embark on their paths to freedom. That night, after my profound encounter in the desert, I couldn't shake the feeling that my experience was meant for something much bigger than myself. The revelations that Jesus imparted pierced through the layers of my doubt and confusion, igniting a sense of purpose I had never known. As I lay awake in my bed, the weight of responsibility pressed down upon me, compelling me to share the truth I had discovered. I understood that this was not just about my own transformation. It was about awakening others trapped in the deceptive beliefs that I had been ensnared by for so long. As much as I felt driven by this calling, the risks loomed large. I was acutely aware of the potential consequences of breaking the silence in a community that valued conformity above all else. Families might shun me, friends could turn their backs, and I risked everything I had built over my lifetime. Yet, the fire within me burned brightly, urging me to take action, to confront the fears that had kept me from speaking truthfully about my awakening. The divine invitation I had accepted during my near-death experience felt too important to ignore. I needed to become a vessel of the truth, a messenger in this ongoing spiritual war between enlightenment and deception. Days turned into weeks as I grappled with my decision. I found myself frequently revisiting the illuminating moments spent with Jesus in the dream. He had given me insight into the hidden agendas of the elite, the manipulation at play in our society, and how deeply entrenched fear and division were in our lives. As I recalled the urgency in his voice, I knew I could no longer hide in the shadows, and I feared that to remain silent would be a betrayal. not just to myself, but to everyone still bound by the chains of falsehood. There was a world out there crying out for truth, and I was equipped with a revelation meant to bring hope and light to those who were ready to awaken. With that awareness stirring within me, I began to seek ways to share my journey. I started by connecting with others who had faced similar struggles. It wasn't long before I found a group dedicated to exploring and discussing these important issues that intertwined our faith with the current state of the world. Together, we dissected the narratives that shaped our beliefs, uncovering the layers of deception that clouded our understanding of reality. The discussions were raw and intense, unearthing the fears we had all carried while embracing the potential for change. I felt energized, my fears beginning to morph into a resolute determination to speak out. Each meeting felt like a step toward liberation. I could see how the truth we uncovered had the power to shatter the illusions that had kept us feeling powerless. The persistent voice of Jesus echoed in my heart, urging me not to shy away from the discomfort of confronting hard truths. I understood that to honor my calling meant standing firm in my new beliefs, even if that meant facing rejection from those I cared about most. Slowly, I began preparing for the moments when I would share my story openly, when I would tell my community about my awakening and the extraordinary revelations that had changed everything for me. The urgency to act grew stronger with each passing day, compelling me to rise above the constraints of my old life. I felt the spiritual war intensifying, both outside and within myself, beckoning me to step into the light of truth and boldly declare my faith in Jesus. I realized the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I was equipped with the knowledge that I was fulfilling a divine purpose. I knew that with each truth I shared, I was not only advocating for my own awakening but igniting a spark in others, inviting them to break free from the shackles of deception encasing their lives. The time for awakening was now, and I was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. After much soul-searching, I made the audacious decision to leave the mosque, my place of worship and community, behind me. It felt like a plunge into the unknown, a move that seemed both terrifying and liberating. As I walked into the desert, the vast expanse of sand stretched before me, symbolic of the void I was leaving and the new life I was determined to embrace. The heat of the sun above felt like a baptism, both purifying and burning away the remnants of my old identity. The courage to renounce the beliefs that had once defined me surged within me, pushing me to seek a purpose rooted not in fear, but in the truth I had encountered during my spiritual awakening. The pain of separation from my family and friends weighed heavily on my heart, each step I took amplifying the ache of loss. I thought of the faces I would leave behind, those who had always regarded me as a pillar of the community. In renouncing my past, I feared I would become a stranger in my own home, a wound in my family's fabric. However, deep within, I understood that true liberation could only come through embracing the path laid out for me, a path illuminated by the light of Jesus, whose revelations had reshaped my understanding of the world. As I traversed the endless dunes, a newfound sense of purpose began to crystallize within me. I realized that my journey was not simply about my own transformation. It was a mission to awaken others from the slumber of deception that had long kept them captive. The hidden agendas perpetuated by the elite, the manipulation of faith to maintain power, and the spiritual war that raged within society were all parts of a larger narrative that demanded to be told. Each revelation I had received urged me to confront these issues head-on and to share my story with those still caught in the cycle of confusion and fear. With every stride across the sandy landscape, the weight of my past identities began to lift, and in its place blossomed a sense of responsibility. I knew that sharing my experience could inspire others to consider the truths they had yet to uncover. I envisioned gatherings where I could connect with individuals ready to confront their own spiritual battles, discussions that would untangle the complexities of faith from manipulation. This awakening was no longer an individual journey. It was a collective calling to rise above the divisions sown by those who sought to keep us in darkness. As I continued my trek through the desert, the courage within me swelled. I felt ready to face the challenges ahead, fueled by a deep understanding of the stakes involved. I recognized that while my journey was daunting, it was necessary, not just for my healing, but for the countless others yearning for truth. I resolved to become a beacon of hope, shedding light on the oppressive narratives that stifled our spirits. The desire to share the love I had encountered, the truth that Jesus had imparted to me, became a guiding force, propelling me forward into this unknown realm of awakening and purpose. As I stand before you now, reflecting on this journey, I must ask, what if everything you've been taught is merely a reflection of the shadows cast by those who wish to keep us in darkness? What if your own quest for truth is intertwined with the awakening of countless others, just waiting for the courage to rise? We are not alone in this spiritual battle. The world is steeped in deception, a swirling chaos designed to keep us divided and fearful. I have experienced firsthand the vibrational shift that occurs when we dare to question, to seek the light beyond the veil of indoctrination. My encounter with Jesus in that mystical desert taught me that this journey is not just about personal salvation, but about igniting a collective awareness that reshapes our world. Each one of us is called to illuminate our paths, to confront the hidden agendas that divide and control us. Now I invite you to reflect on your own experiences. Have you sensed an urge to break free from the chains of expectation and delve deeper into the truth within you? It's time for you to share these thoughts, to connect, to inspire dialogue in the comments below. Your story matters, and together we can create a tapestry of awakening that unites us in our shared spiritual struggle. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit the notification bell. Your support is crucial as we continue to explore the deeper truths of our existence and challenge the narratives that seek to bind us. Remember, your involvement amplifies the light we create together. In our next video, we'll journey alongside another soul who escaped the clutches of manipulation, discovering how truth can often be a bittersweet redemption. I'm Amir. Thank you for taking this time with me today. Remember, every step you take towards truth is a step towards liberation for us all. Together, we will embrace the light of awakening that transcends all fear. In this video, I will walk you through my transformation and the revelations that shook my very foundation. So as we embark on this journey together, share with me, where are you watching from and what time does it say on your clock? Let's connect across the miles. And if you love Jesus and long for the truth, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. You won't want to miss what's coming next, because awakening is just the beginning. In the conservative neighborhood of Kabul, where the mosque stood as a centerpiece of our lives, there was an unspoken web of reverence woven tightly with fear. I was an Imam, respected for my knowledge of the Quran and my dedication to Islamic practices, yet as I stood before my congregation, a growing emptiness stirred within me. The ritual prayers, filled with the sounds of devotion, felt increasingly hollow as doubts crept into my mind. While the faithful gathered, their faces painted with piety, I sensed an undercurrent of spiritual disconnection that hung thick in the air. The more I preached about faith, the more I felt like a performer hiding behind a mask, concealing the turmoil that raged in my soul. My life took a sudden turn one fateful night when I experienced a near-death event. It happened when a group of insurgents stormed our neighborhood, armed and aggressive. They targeted the mosque, and amidst the chaos, I was struck and fell to the ground. Darkness consumed me, and as I lay there, I felt my spirit rise above my body. I found myself enveloped in an overwhelming light, both calming and powerful. It was there that Jesus appeared, a radiant figure whose presence exuded love and compassion. "You are called to awaken," he said. And with those words, I felt a rush of revelations cascade through me. The peace of his voice shattered the soldiers, terror that had so recently filled my mind. In that moment of divine grace, Jesus shared truths that would alter the course of my life. I wasn't just an imam. I was part of a spiritual war that extended far beyond the walls of the mosque and the constraints of our beliefs. He revealed how the elite orchestrated divisions among us, employing fear and manipulation to control our understanding of faith and society. I saw our community trapped in a hidden agenda designed to provide power to a select few while keeping the masses in ignorance. The disdain and suffering that rumbled beneath the surface were symptomatic of a much larger battle, one where the truth was obscured by layers of deception. The visions continued, showing me the fractured state of our world. Endless wars fueled by ideology, leaders wielding their power without accountability, and everyday people caught in the crossfire of division. I felt an urgent calling, a desire to break free from the chains of indoctrination that had constrained my voice. Jesus emphasized that there was a path to awakening, a journey not just for myself, but for those around me who yearned for truth and connection. I grasped the weight of his message. It was not enough to simply understand this revelation. I was charged with the responsibility of sharing it. The light I experienced was not just for me, but for a world aching for healing. As I returned to consciousness in the ICU, surrounded by the sterile scent of antiseptic and the hum of machinery, the shock of my experience settled in. I had survived, but I couldn't ignore the urgency driving me to act. My transformation, however, would come with unprecedented challenges. The beliefs I had once held dearly were now at odds with the mission unfolding before me. Stepping into the light of truth meant risking my position in the community, confronting the very essence of my identity, and facing the potential wrath of those who thrived on the old ways. As I processed my experience, the desire to share my truths intensified. I resolved to engage my fellow Muslims, to shine a spotlight on the hidden agendas that clouded our understanding and the urgent need for awakening. This journey was just beginning, and with it came the promise of profound transformation for myself and the world around me. I stand before you today as Amir, a 35-year-old Imam, known for my discipline, deep knowledge of the Quran, and commitment to Islamic practices. Yet beneath the facade of respectability lies a turbulent sea of emotional emptiness. For years, I devoted myself to my role, leading prayers and guiding my community with unwavering adherence to tradition. But as I fulfilled my obligations, an unsettling discontent brewed within me. Each ritual felt more like a performance, a repetition of words that no longer resonated with the yearning deep in my soul. I was caught in a struggle between my religious obedience and an insatiable quest for spiritual fulfillment. In the dead of night, when I allowed myself a moment of quiet, the weight of my inner conflict pressed heavily on my heart. I often found myself staring at the ceiling, wrestling with questions that dared not breach the light of day. Why did my faith feel stagnant? Why did the raptured faces of my congregation fail to ignite the same spark within me? The silence in my room was deafening, punctuated by the whispers of doubt that encouraged me to question the very foundations I had built my life upon. I sensed a spiritual war raging within me, battling against the traditions I had upheld and the truth I desperately sought. One fateful night, everything changed. During an encounter with a grievous event, a near-death experience following a sudden accident that left me unconscious, I slipped into darkness. It was in this void where the extraordinary unfolded. I found myself enveloped in a bright, radiant light, and there stood Jesus, his presence filling the expanse around me. I felt a warmth I couldn't explain, a love that transcended any understanding I had previously known. "Amir," he said, calling my name with a tone both loving and firm. In that moment, every doubt started to dissipate as profound revelations flooded my mind. Jesus began to unveil the hidden truths of my existence and our world. He spoke of the deception that kept people shackled to their fears and ignorance. I witnessed how the elite orchestrated a hidden agenda, manipulating societal structures to maintain power over the masses. The war for our hearts and minds was real, and I could see clearly how divisions were created and perpetuated by those in control. The leaders of our society wielded fear as their greatest weapon, silencing the voices of truth and allowing the masses to be led astray. It was a revelation that sank deep within me, igniting a flame of urgency. When I awoke from that experience, I could no longer maintain the status quo. Everything that I had thought was true now stood against the backdrop of the revelations I had received. The sense of emotional emptiness that once plagued me was now filled with a fire, a calling I could not ignore. It became clear to me that my purpose was no longer just to lead prayers, but to awaken others to the truths I had uncovered. The experience had not just changed me, it was a defining moment, compelling me to share the love and clarity of Jesus. I felt the weight of this mission press upon me, knowing that stepping into this role would mean facing the very fears that had kept me silent for so long. As the urgency within me grew, I realized I was on the precipice of a journey that would not only transform my life but countless others caught in the grips of deception and despair. As I settled into my evening prayers, I found myself grappling with an unsettling emptiness that had begun to consume me. As an imam, I was expected to embody spiritual conviction, leading my congregation with strength and assurance. Yet, each recitation felt increasingly hollow, echoing off the walls of the mosque without resonating within my heart. The very foundations of my faith, which I had once held dear, seemed to falter under the weight of somber introspection. I felt trapped in a belief system that was meant to liberate but instead felt restrictive, more a set of shackles than a means to spiritual freedom. My nights became restless, filled with unsettling dreams that escalated my sense of disconnection. I dreamt of vast deserts, endless expanses that mirrored the void I felt inside. I'd wander through these desolate landscapes, searching for something that always remained just out of reach. In these dreams, a figure would appear, always shrouded in light, but their features remained indistinct. It was both haunting and captivating, filling me with longing and fear. I awoke from these dreams feeling more lost than ever, questioning if my devotion truly led me closer to God or further into a labyrinth of rules and expectations created by men. As this internal conflict grew, I began to understand that I was not simply struggling with doubt, but fighting a deeper spiritual war. Each prayer became a battlefield, and my heart a prize that seemed perpetually out of reach. The voice of Jesus echoed in my consciousness, nudging me toward an awareness that I could no longer ignore. Those dreams, these moments of discontent, were not merely figments of my imagination. They were urgent calls for awakening, compelling me to confront the unexamined truths of my life and the realities around me. One particular night changed everything. As I slipped into slumber, I was thrust once more into that familiar desert, but this time, the figure emerged with clarity that shattered my apprehension. It was Jesus. His presence illuminating the landscape and flooding my heart with warmth and understanding. "Amir," he said, and with that one word, I felt the weight of fear lift as he began to reveal the hidden agenda behind the deceptions that had clouded my vision for so long. I saw the complex layers of manipulation intertwined with our faith. How the elite had harnessed our beliefs to maintain control over our minds and spirits. Jesus, revelations cascaded through me, exposing the societal and political structures that perpetuated pain and division. I witnessed the shadows of deceit that hung over our world, realities where wars were fueled by ideology and leaders exploited fear to maintain power. Each image was stark and vivid, calling me to recognize the urgency of the transformation I needed to embody. The path ahead was not just about rediscovering my faith, it was about awakening others from the slumber of ignorance I had been immersed in. I could feel the fire of purpose igniting within me, propelling me toward the truth I had once feared to confront, aware now that the stakes were higher than I had ever imagined. One fateful night, I found myself submerged in a vivid dream that felt more real than life itself. I remember standing in a vast desert, the terrain stretching endlessly before me. The hot sun beat down, and the golden sands shone brightly, but despite the beauty surrounding me, A deep sense of unease settled in my gut. As I wandered through the desolation, I felt an unfamiliar weight pressing on my shoulders, a reminder of the emotional emptiness I had been grappling with in my waking life. I was a respected Imam, yet I felt more like a ghost, hidden beneath layers of expectation and societal norms that had distanced me from my own spiritual truth. In the midst of the barren landscape, a figure emerged from the shimmering heat. It was Jesus, radiant and majestic, his presence eclipsing all the shadows that surrounded me. Amir. He called my name, and it reverberated through the stillness like a distant echo returning home. Instantly, I was filled with a warmth that melted away the fear, doubt, and confusion I had carried for so long. "You seek truth," he said gently, "but your path is clouded by deception." In that moment, the dense fog of my struggles began to lift, revealing a deeper understanding of the spiritual warfare raging not just within me but among the beliefs of my community and the world at large. As Jesus spoke, layers of hidden agendas unfurled before my eyes. I witnessed how religion and tradition, meant to unite, had instead sown division among the faithful. The elite, I came to see, manipulated these divisions, wielding them as weapons to maintain control over the minds and hearts of people. Their power thrived on our ignorance, and the revelations began to intertwine with haunting truths about the societal structures that dictated our lives. I felt the urgency of his message penetrate my heart. This was not merely a dream, but a powerful call to awareness in the face of an ongoing spiritual conflict. The visions expanded, showing me scenes of war, suffering, and discontent across the globe. Leaders perpetuated chaos, using fear to galvanize divisions and maintain their influence. I realized that I was part of a larger story, one that required awakening and courage. This awakening was more than personal. It was about understanding the systemic deceptions designed to inhibit our growth and connection as a global community. Jesus showed me that the truths we seek often lie buried under layers of religious dogma that can obscure the very essence of faith itself. Before I awoke from the dream, Jesus turned to me yet again, his eyes filled with compassion. "Embrace the truth," he urged, "and do not be afraid to share it." As I felt the weight of his words, an electric charge coursed through me, igniting a fire of purpose that I could no longer ignore. I awoke in a state of shock, gasping for breath, but this experience altered my perception forever. I knew I had to confront the fear of judgment that loomed over me. The truth was calling me to action, demanding that I not only embark on my own path of awakening, but also lift others from the chains of deception. This was just the beginning of a journey I never expected to embark upon, one where the stakes were immeasurable and the destiny of many lay in the balance. After that life-altering dream, returning to my life felt surreal, as though I were navigating through a fog of confusion and fear. The visions of Jesus lingered in my mind, illuminating the spiritual war one had been oblivious to for years. Yet, as I resumed my duties as an imam, the weight of my experience pressed heavily on my heart. The rituals, once comforting, now felt like shackles, binding me to a tradition that I no longer felt aligned with. Each prayer became an exercise in contradiction, forcing me to confront the gulf between my newfound understanding and the beliefs I had held for so long. My internal turmoil quickly manifested in my relationships. Family gatherings turned tense, conversations fraught with tension. I tried to articulate the revelations I had received, the hidden agendas maintained by the elite, the deceptions woven into our religious practices. But I was met with hostility and disbelief. The idea that I could no longer blindly follow the path laid out for me soon branded me a heretic in the eyes of my loved ones. They struggled to understand the light I had seen, choosing instead to cling to the familiar darkness of unquestioned beliefs. This rejection pierced my heart, deepening my sense of isolation and guilt. As word spread through our community, I became a pariah, shunned for questioning the very faith that had once defined me. The walls felt as though they were closing in, and fragments of doubt began to creep back into my mind.